tell me about voice ordering AI and why you think it's so exciting, particularly in the pizza space.
Yeah, it's really heated up over the past year. I think the next year is going to be a year of tremendous growth for voice AI, and not just for ordering, but for reservations, for question and answer, for pretty much every kind of on-phone guest interaction that you have. And I think the reason why is that both the need in the restaurant community, where at least 30% of calls are just missed, and calls that are received, if you get put on hold for more than a minute and people just hang up. So there's a big need where restaurants are losing revenue.
Yeah.
And then on the technology side, the large language models and the state of AI has just advanced to the point where you can actually have a real conversation with it.
Yeah.
It kind of understands what you're saying. It is sophisticated enough to take orders and to know when, also when it's out of its depth and needs to escalate to a human being. So that confluence of, just like a growing need in the customer base and the technology is caught up to that need.
Yeah, one of the ways, so I wrote this story about it, and I got to talk to operators about it, and one of the things that really struck me was I'm no fan of AI. I'm sure as a writer you can imagine sort of that existential threat it poses and everything.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, but at the same time, this was one of the situations where it feels like it just makes sense for everybody involved. Do you think that's fair?
I think it's very fair. And I've never talked to a customer so far that's like, hey, I'm going to replace the person answering a phone with AI. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Right. What's happening is everybody in the kitchen is busy. They're serving customers at the front desk, and it's a big distraction of the phone. So what they're doing is letting people in the restaurant focus on what's most important, which is, making quality food and serving the guests that come into the actual restaurant.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, with that said, I think there are going to be people, especially of older generations, but not limited to that, who just don't like it. What's sort of your view of that, and how consumers may or may not adapt to the technology?
I think that's true of almost every technology that comes along. Maybe it's more true of AI, but there are a certain cohort of people who don't like to text, or they don't like the phone, or they don't like web ordering. And so any business that sort of ties themselves to a single outlet is they risk alienating some customers. But with voice AI, if you ask to speak to a human, we can escalate to ring a phone in the shop if you really want to talk to a human. Interestingly, we found that kind of when I went into this, I was expecting that younger people, Gen Z, they're not going to want to talk on the phone. They're going to want to text. But turns out Gen Z actually likes to talk on the phone when they're talking to AI, which is kind of funny to me.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. You never know what makes that tick. But okay. Yeah. In the pilot runs you've done and things like that, is that basically what you're hearing from consumers? Is sort of, or that they adjust to it quicker than you would think?
They do, yeah. Right now we're running at about 90% satisfaction. Just like people are happy with the call.
Yeah.
They like to do it. Which, I don't think you get that high with people answering the phone. So I'm really pleased to see that, to see those numbers. And I think there's going to be an adjustment period for sure, and it may depend, be generational. But I think we work through that with every new technology.
You've been in the tech space for a really long time. You've seen how these things You've seen how these things go. It seems like to me, somebody who isn't super familiar with things, is that when a need for this type of technology arises, there'll be a lot of players in the space. There's a lot of players in the voice ordering AI space right now. And then probably there'll be a few winners, and those will be the ones that people use. How do you view that, and sort of how do you feel Palona is situated at this point?
So there are already a lot of players.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign of other people have recognized sort of the need and the technology is there. So if you're in a market all by yourself, it's probably not a very good market. So I like the fact that there's competitors. There's a pretty wide range of capability among those competitors, and I think a lot of that's going to shake out over the coming months and year. I think the other thing that's going to happen is people are focused on voice AI today, but there's a lot more that AI can do for restaurant owners in the business. we're looking at vision, we're looking at other kinds of technology and AI that can help restaurants be more efficient and manage their operations better. And I think not every voice vendor is going to be able to expand into other types of AI. And then you get the advantage of like, okay, do I really want to get, sort of piece together my AI operational efficiency solutions from different vendors, or do I want to go from a vendor that can kind of do everything?
Tell me more about vision, because I've heard a little bit about this, but what does that look like? No pun intended, by the way.
Yeah. So I don't have anything to announce today, but I would say that AI is pretty good at recognizing a scene and identifying tables, trash, people, line, things like that. Looking at food and judging the quality of food, things like that. And I think those, that the real issue with vision, as with everything else in AI, is getting access to the training data. Like, do you have enough data to identify good pizza from bad pizza? And if you have the training data, then you can, you can do a really good job at that. And AI can get to, human level or better of, whatever kind of task you're given.
Yeah. Speaking of sort of the training aspect of it, one thing I have heard about the voice AI is like, it's not a seamless process. It's like onboarding an employee, if not a much bigger deal. Do you envision that getting easier and easier as time goes and the AI has more and more data to work from?
I think it'll definitely get easier. And we look at, customers have different expectations and different requirements for, what are they most concerned about in onboarding? And so there's sort of a common level of things that people want. They want, it should know my menu, it should know my cuisine, pizza versus Chinese food or whatever. So those are pretty common things. Some customers are very concerned, like it should have a super specific tone, attitude, accent, right? So they spend time doing that. We've had customers that actually we've cloned their voice. They want to be their voice when you call. We have Sean Wycliffe and Cali Barbecue, for example, which has been hugely successful for them and for us. And then there's other things which I think are just going to get better over time, out of the box. And these are things like how it pronounces specific words.
Yeah.
So, maybe your Italian cuisine and it's not doing the correct Italian pronunciation for, penne pasta or something. And you can train it to do that, but that takes time during the onboarding process. And some customers are concerned about that, some aren't. But that's the sort of thing that it's going to get better for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Last question, two-part. I feel like if anybody asks me what the biggest trend in 2026 is, I really believe it's this. I really do. Like, I actually want you to argue against it. I want you to tell me, why would it not be? What would be sort of some of the headwinds that you'll face?
I think so. Probably the biggest challenge we have is like we're building a car on top of those very moving foundations. And so that's for a great benefit. New models coming out all the time. AI is getting more capable, but it's also a little bit of an unstable, foundation. So when we have to decide, when are we going to upgrade, when are we going to, and so I think, the other thing is when we talk to customers, they've often been burned in the past, previous generations of technology that have sort of promised exactly what's being promised today, but like it fell so far short of delivering. So I think there's still some of that out there, and some of the players in the space are still, like they've upped their marketing game, but underlying technology is not great. So what could affect the market in general would be if people perceive like, okay, it's another hype cycle, right? It's not really working. And I think, and we've seen a great variation in quality among competitors in the space. So I think that's gonna shape out in favor for the whole industry. And we won't see so many competitors, a year from now. But that would be bad if, people with poor technology sort of car the whole industry.
Yeah. I could totally picture that.
And I think the other thing is, you mentioned earlier, the acceptance level among different demographics. So in some maybe particular verticals of the restaurant industry, maybe fine dining, it's not going to take off, or something like that could happen where people kind of decide like, I really like it.
But it could be so effective even in that space just for the reservation aspect of things, right? Like that just seems like a really obvious application.
Yeah, it's time consuming for somebody to take a reservation.
Yeah.
And it's tailor-made for AI, right? You're giving it a call. It's very easy to do, almost 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So I think that's you look at the different levels, right? You can just have it answer the questions like, where are you located? What are your hours? What kind of cuisine do you have? Those kind of questions, which are not revenue bearing, right?
But it can just keep somebody off of your
filters out those.
Yeah.
You can give it the next job to do, which is take reservations, manage the wait list.
Yeah.
And if you're happy with that, you can go all the way to like ordering, takeout, and even beyond that, doing things like catering, which is a much more involved process.
Yeah.
And it involves not just a phone call, but sort of the follow up after to make sure you prepare the food. If you understand the venue, there's like, touch points with the customer after the initial design.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's interesting because, as it stands right now, you could call and make a reservation at 6 a.m. for that night.
Yeah.
You're just like, I might not get called back till like 4:30 p.m. when my reservation's at 5:30, so I don't even.
Right.
I'm leaving the house not knowing if I have a reservation.
Yeah. And that's somebody's time.
Yeah.
To get that voicemail and call you back.
Right.
Whether they get a hold of you or not. If you phone tag, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. Nobody wants to pick up numbers they don't
AI
recognize.
does not mind tactiling you until you answer. It's fine.
Let's keep that in mind, folks. Anyway, been very fun, Tim. Appreciate you very much.
Cool. Happy to be here.